So let's get into it right now. The top 10 in the country as I see it this week. Okay, I moved the little guys, if you will, down a little bit, but it's only because the other teams have been so impressive. So BYU stays in my top 10, but they've become the 10th ranked team in the country. Listen, you guys know how I feel about BYU. I think that they've had a remarkable season. I love what they've been able to do. I mean, think about, they handed Boise State their worst home loss since the 90s, right? Like, this is a really, really good team. I love their head coach. Kalani Sitake has done an excellent job there. They're tough. Zach Hall is an amazing quarterback who I think will be in that Heisman Trophy conversation at the end of the season, and maybe even has worked himself into a position where he could potentially be a guy that could be a first-round NFL draft pick, maybe a second-round NFL draft pick, depending on how the season finishes out. So love what BYU is doing. Cincinnati. All right, folks, Cincinnati is real, all right? And when you look at their last 4 games, like, they were winning games. And remember, the last 2 seasons, they put together 11-win years. And now Luke Fickell's bunch comes out here, and they just continue to win game after game after game. And in the last 4, they've been absolutely dominant. Cincy has won by an average of 33.5 points per game over their last 4. They've run for 299 yards per in those 4 games. And Desmond Ridder has 17 total touchdowns, right? Like, they are playing at such a high level right now, and they're making a push. They're making a push to be considered for the playoff. It's one of the reasons I think that you saw Luke Fickell kind of pour it on at the end of the game last week against East Carolina. And I know he caught some crap at the end of the game. You know, the coaches came together. There was, a long conversation there, not many handshakes, obviously masks up. We don't know what was actually being said. But here's the bottom line. When college football is going to crown their champion basically via a beauty contest in the college football playoff with the 4 best teams going, guess what you have to do? If you're Cincinnati, you got to lay it on thick, because that's the only thing you got. You're not going to have the strength of schedule, right? No one's going to sit there and just say, well, obviously Cincinnati's in there, so you've got to do something. And I think that's the reason why you saw Luke Fickell kind of pour it on at the end against East Carolina. By the way, their last 3 games, at least before a conference championship game, all on the road. They're going to have UCF in the bounce house, Temple, and then against 25th ranked Tulsa. So that's how they kind of end out the season as they're trying to make a push towards the playoff. All right, at number 8, I've got Indiana. They continue to play unbelievable football. How about that defense, by the way? They went on the road, shut out a Michigan State team that's struggling on offense. Number 7, I've got Wisconsin. That was incredibly impressive. Everyone was wondering, like, well, is Michigan going to bounce back? And will this long layoff hurt Wisconsin? We didn't know who was going to play out there for Wisconsin, what type of depth they were going to have after all of their COVID issues. And they rolled out there and just thumped the Wolverines. So that's a really good football team. And there's going to be some interesting things here with Wisconsin. By the way, like this interesting thing. There's a scenario out there where Wisconsin can be undefeated and not qualify for the Big Ten championship game, which means that they could be undefeated at the end of the year, along with an undefeated Ohio State team. What does the playoff committee do with that? Like, there's a scenario where if Wisconsin doesn't get to the 6-game mark before the conference championship game, like if they miss one more game due to their COVID issue, somebody else's COVID issue, and they only play 5 regular season games right now, the Big Ten says if you don't play a 6th regular season game, you can't play in the conference championship game. Well, they would still play in one of those round robin style games in that last week, which means they could be just 6-0. Oh, hey, don't worry about us. We're just 6-0 over here being considered for the playoff, but our own league won't let us go play the conference championship game. Can we change that rule? Big Ten, like, honestly, it's an arbitrary rule. You just made it for this year. Unmake it. I think that's a bad rule. There's no reason why there should just be some arbitrary 6-game mark that you have to play in order to go qualify for the Big Ten championship game. It's only in the Big Ten. You don't see that in other leagues. So I think that the Big Ten should change that, and I think they should change it quickly. All right, number 6, I've got the Florida Gators. Why? Are they 6th and not higher with some really good losses in the way Kyle Trask is playing? Because they lost to my number 5 team, which is Texas A&M. You see where this theme is going, right? Texas A&M at number 5 because of their win over Florida. I really like what Jimbo Fisher has been able to do at Texas A&M, and I love what Dan Mullen is doing at Florida. Kyle Trask right now is in the top 2 or 3 in the Heisman Trophy race. In fact, if you had to vote today, he probably would take home the trophy based on volume and numbers over a guy like Justin Fields. But remember now, Justin Fields is going to get a lot of love for being the best player on his team. Trask is going to get the same, but he also has Kyle Pitts. All right. And you may get some vote stealing in the South with a guy like Mac Jones, maybe even Najee Harris from Alabama, where you're not going to get that vote stealing in the Big Ten. At least that's my assumption. So Justin Fields looks like he's in a good position right now for the Heisman, but that's down the road. As we get into the top four, Clemson's number 4 after that loss to Notre Dame. Notre Dame is the number 3 team in the country. A lot of people hate me for that. But listen, I don't think they're as good or dominant as Ohio State and as Alabama, and those are my top 2 teams in the country. I think Notre Dame is a really good team. I love their length, in particular on defense. They're physical. They had a great game plan against Clemson, in particular with Trevor Lawrence out and some of those defensive players out. But right now, I still have Notre Dame at number 3 at 8-0, Ohio State at 3-0 at number 2, and I can't wait to watch them against Indiana and what will be kind of their first test here of the season. And Alabama there at 6-0. They look dominant as well. So there's my top 10 teams in the country as I see them right now. It should be noted, by the way, folks, if there was a year that we were going to get a group of 5 team into the playoff, it would be a year like this, right? Like, let's say Notre Dame beats Clemson in the ACC championship game, and we got Bama, Ohio State, and Notre Dame all undefeated, and then just a big mess behind it. I could see them saying, like, hey, this is the year. Let's honor Luke Fickell and Cincinnati and what they've been able to do. Or maybe it's BYU at that point after potentially a big win against San Diego State. This is the year. If you're clamoring for a group of 5 team in the playoff, 2020 might be your year. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy that clip, make sure you click subscribe somewhere down here. From game highlights to exclusive interviews and rankings, we've got everything you need as a college football fan right here, College Football on Fox.